So this is the second video in a 3-video series on chasing symbols in the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript. Okay, so we're looking at a different map here. This map has 3 layers, not just one. And this is where I start running into problems. In that, so I have parks here, and this is probably an SVG symbol, just so you know. And then I have structures here. And I like these because in my previous example, the symbology was getting cut off by the chip. So the chip has like a circular mass kind of deal. And I said, well, these are already separated. Go as circles, so maybe they'll look better. And they did in that. So, I do have a little oddball here, and we'll talk about that more in the third video, but you'll see it in here in that. Because what happened is when I switched to this map, and I said, hey, I want these symbols in the chips, nothing. Right? And so that can be very frustrating in that. But let's take a look at the code and that sort of thing. And so here's the chip. Big switch here is not using the div, but using the image tag, because I was getting nothing. And I was like, well, what's going on in that? And so a little bit of interplay with the SDK and that, and what to do about that. So the thing is, they do have some utilities that help you deal with symbology, right? And what that, I guess, hints towards is that every once in a while you're going to encounter some symbology that's not friendly in HTML. And that SVG is, simple images are, like if they're PNGs and that. But you might run into some other type of symbology that is cartographic information model based maybe. And that, but what was happening was that nothing was coming across because I wasn't getting SVGs anymore in that. And so the big addition here is this symbol utils, I guess, method or object with methods that helps you convert the symbology you might find in a map into something that's more HTML friendly. So that exists in the API for this exact reason that, yeah, there are cases where you're going to run into symbology that's SVG based or maybe even an image based, and it shows up, no problem. But there's going to be other types of symbology that needs a little bit of help to be converted to a web friendly format in that. Got our stock map, web map view, legend view model. Still using the legend view model, right? Still on this path of, okay, still try to get a legend view model. But as we start learning more stuff about what's going on in that, almost the exact same chip group as last time, no difference here. A lot of this is boilerplate code. Basically what changes the ID, it's a different map. So make me a web map, make me a view with that web map kind of stuff. Then make a view legend based on that view. And that. And we'll just roll these up. And this is almost the same as last time too. View updating is the trigger to say, okay, I think the view is ready. That is done. And it's safe to go talk to the legend view model in that. And it should have enough information in there for me to talk to it. So a big thing was I only had one layer last time, so I was doing 0. But the layer I'm interested in here is the second layer, so layer 1. In this case, a 0 indexing. So that was a change. So you have to be aware of what's in there. There's other ways to do this, right? And that. But I was going through the legend view model, and so I had to get the active info layers, and I had to go get, you know, the second one. And even then, maybe active layers info is not a good way to go, right? And that. Because what was happening to me, well, there's a couple things that are happening is the layers would go away in that. So sometimes I would have 3 layers in my legend view model, and sometimes I wouldn't. And so let's go back to that actually. Easily missed if you're on a page and you scroll down, this thing called visibility range, what we would call scale dependency. If you always want it to be part of the legend, then you need to widen this out. If this is narrow, there's going to be cases, depending on your zoom level, your lodge, your level of detail, that your layer won't show up in the legend list. So it's actually quite dynamic, the legend widget and the legend widget model. It may affect layer list as well. I haven't played around with that, but definitely affects the legend widget, that your legend is changing dynamically depending on your scale, LOD, your level of detail, and what you have in terms of visibility range. So I was missing this because it was, at the bottom of the list and stuff like that. It was way past my symbology that I was working on. But this had a big effect, okay? Because your layer can go missing from the legend view model in that. And then you're getting different symbology and those types of things, or no symbology in that. So we'll jump back to the code in that. Now, again, did I have a race issue in this one? Yeah, this is where I have the race issue, where the for loop in the past wasn't giving me a problem because the symbology was ready. It was SVG ready to go. It's slide right in. So I can grab them both at the same time. Here, I have to actually, if I go down this function here I have to render a preview image. Now that could take a couple milliseconds, but what it is in that couple of milliseconds is my for loop is done. And all honesty, these are promises done asynchronously, right? So they're off doing their thing, which means my for loop can get ahead of them, and it did. And so I had a situation where the last symbol in the list, and it's not in my HTML code, it's whoever's in here, the last one wins. And I'd only have one chip with its symbology. And so I could do it maybe an async wait. This is a technique I use in another video. But here I needed to preserve this label value. And by actually, by using a function and the fact that JavaScript passes by value for simple data types versus by reference, I'm able to take a snapshot of what that value was, use that to run the promise and then stuff the result coming back. So because I wasn't getting anything back, everything was blank through the debugger in the browser, I discovered, hey, in this particular case, and it is this particular case, symbol utils render preview HTML, right, sent me back an image in that. And that's why I flipped. I saw, okay, this sends back images. That's what I thought in that. So I flipped all these to images. On this image, I set the source tag, the SRE, not tag, but source attribute, to a 64-bit encoded image coming back. So I was getting 64 base encoded images back, 32 pixels by 32 pixels, and so I would stuff that into the source of the image, and things worked out well. They slid into the chips nicely, and that actually, why not take a look at that if we haven't done that already? So, and that I should be on localhost somewhere. Where are you? And that, well, I'll just tie into it here. It'll be on localhost. Yes, should be on that one. Might be on 4. There they all are. They came in and they fit into the chip nicely, right? They even get resized. I didn't realize they were getting resized, but they are in that. But faucet is missing, so let's go in there and bring it back. So because I did at the time when I wrote this, I didn't have faucet in there, right? So you're playing around with the data, trying to extract more out of it. And so if we go and uncomment this code in that, and we go back and take a look, and that, broken image, right? In that. And so it wasn't until later that I discovered, because I wrote the sample, it was working, and then I went on to another way to get it because I was getting concerned that, well, maybe going through the legend view model is not the way to go. Maybe I should talk directly to the layer and just go all the way back to the layer and get the symbology from there and that sort of thing. So, but I hadn't been aware that faucet, because of the symbol I chose, wasn't going to send back an image. Of all things, it sends back an SVG, which we'll solve in the next video and that. But because I wasn't pulling it in this demo, I didn't notice that, hey, all these were working. I'm in happy land. Okay, maybe I just get everything as images, right? Everything is looking good and that sort of thing in that, except for this one. But I didn't have this one at the time. And we should check that my chip stuff is working, right? I'm going to have an error in the console probably in that. Oh, no, I'm okay right now in that. But let's, the idea, remember I have these chips, they're in a group. I have some code hooked to it to do a test. Let's take a look at that. And that's near the bottom here. Once we wrap this up, can wrap this one up too. And so this is just a, like a requery concept. Eventually I want to use these chips to restrict the parks that are listed but that's not built yet, or well, it's built now, but when I was doing this, it wasn't built. But basically, hey, my test set is, hey, does the park have cooking and a table? So do you have picnic tables and a cooking area and if you have those two things, then I am interested, hey, maybe taking the kids out for a day and going there. And so what I do is I basically test. This is where I build up the set. What are all the chips that are selected? Build a JavaScript set based on that and their values. This is my test set, and then I just ask a question. Is this test set a subset of the ones that are selected in the chips and that? And I put out a different message. So let's go back and take a look at that in action, because the chips are nice, right? That's what I want for the user interface experience. But, right, the big thing is, is the selection, right? So by selecting these, we'll eventually restrict the number of the parks we show on the side, and then they can select what park they want to go to, and it'll zoom the map to that. Baby steps. So I'm looking for a place that has cooking, right? No, sad face, don't have enough, because I'm also looking, I need a cooking and table, yes. And what if I want a fountain as well? Well, I mean, that's fine, because that's the user selecting that. Our test set is just looking for table and cooking, right? And so it meets that criteria. But the idea is that that criteria is used to select the park, to, I guess, filter the parks would be one way to think about that. And then from there, they can pick what park they want to zoom to. But this is just working out the chip part. I really wanted the chips to have the same symbology as the map and not a whole bunch of different symbology, because that could be confusing. So make it the same. Chips are, I just took for granted that the chips were centered, but we'll see later that might not happen. So the chips are centered in this circle. They're circular chips, right? So nothing's cut off, kind of what I wanted, and that sort of thing. So kind of happy with that. And it's working. Oh, but we have a broken one. But again, this wasn't detected till my third sample, where I started adding more. I was breaking down the data more so that people could do, more different types of searches, making it more granular. And that's when the busted faucet here showed up, and I got to figure out, okay, maybe I should rethink how I chase these symbols down. That's all for now.